That's right.
A nice, charitable one.
And then they give him a name, and they name him Clark, and that is the name of my boss at work.
You have a lot of reality in
yes,
this, don't
yes,
you?
yes.
Erna Reinhardt.
It sounds like there's a little moral to the story. Not a little moral, but it sounds like there's a great moral to the story. So share that with us.
Well, not to judge someone by their looks, and the ogre didn't have any friends because people would look at him and be frightened. And they found out he was a good ogre, and they immediately became friends. So.
That's an important moral. That's awesome. That's wonderful. Share with us a little bit about how, once you got the story written, you got the illustrations completed, then what's the next step in terms of people out there that might want to be interested in writing their own book? What's the next part of the process?
Well, hopefully they will have some type of computer skills or formatting skills themselves so they can kind of pull it together. You can see in the style of the book the way the paragraphs are organized and the type of font. I had a lot of help with that. I have a wonderful gal, and I've recognized her in the book. Her name is Liz Peterson, and she did the formatting for me. And she works with me, and so I knew of her skill level. So from there, she formatted it, put it all together in a publisher style, and I was able to put it on a disc and take it. Originally, I took it to Kinko's and had them print a couple out and do some binding. Since then, I have actually purchased my own very large printer. I print my own books on demand, and then I take them to Kinko's for the binding. And I'll probably work on getting my own binder, too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, now, I know some parents have been listening to your reading, and maybe they would like to get this book for their children. An awful lot of parents read to their children at night. And so we've had it on the screen, the contact, but we'll have you to verbally do it, too, in case someone has been on the screen. How can individuals get in touch with you?
They can email me at k26cw@hotmail.com. They can call me personally, and that's 208-765-5345.
Well, say it again slowly.
Okay, 208-765-5345, and just leave a message, and I will take that information. And then locally here in Coeur d'Alene, it's available at Hastings and Borders.
Look, in Coeur d'Alene.
Yes.
Well, certainly our audience is much broader than just our area, and so but they could get through the phone or the email to you.
And they could get it from Hastings and Borders, whatever town they're in. It can be shipped from Coeur d'Alene.
Because it can be shipped from the Coeur d'Alene. Yeah, because there's a lot of those throughout the region where we are. We're going to wait till next week, but we just wanted to get started on the fact that this is, you mentioned earlier in the show that this is your first book. The second book is called The Woodville Wedding. We're taping this program in October, but it will not air till later. So when will that book be available?
That book actually will hopefully hit the shelves within about 3 weeks.
So the show will air later, but it'll be out before Christmas.
Yeah.
That's another thing that a lot of times the kids are bought such things as books like this for Christmas, and we're not going to get into what it's about until next week, but I wanted you to be aware. Another question I have is that, are you hooked on this now? This is your second book. You have other books planned. Is it going to be a more sequence of others?
Yeah, well, I wanted to do at least 3 in this series because I just have so much fun with it. And, you know, Oscar, I'll show him here in a second. He is just my buddy, and so I'm having a lot of fun with it. I actually kind of started a little more serious book, and I've just done the outline. I haven't gotten too far, and we'll just.
But it's on the same line.
No, it's not a children's book.
Okay.
No, yeah.
It's going to be different.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time, but you might. Can
I would love for everyone to meet him.
You want to lift him up, and he's been
Buddy.
nice waiting here.
You know Tony.
Yes, Oscar, we've seen you a lot of times. Oh, he's speaking out, and he seems to be happy. And so, how are you, Oscar? He's going to try to drink your water there. Oscar, you are now famous. Yes. Well, looks like he's. You want to look over here, Oscar? What do you think of the book?
He's a big fan.
He is a big fan of the book. Well, thank you so much, Christy Wood. Ladies and gentlemen, our program today has been with Christy Wood, who has written a book called The Adventures of Woodville. Oscar Meets the Duchess, and she's read some from it, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the book. And Also, children's books are very, very good. In addition to the Woodville Wedding, we'll talk about next week, we want to talk about some of your ideas for your third book. You've intrigued me because you said it's not going to be a children's book. And also next week, we want to talk about some other things that you're involved in addition to your writing that I think our viewers would be interested in very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would invite you to return with us next week when we're going to continue our discussion with our guest, Christy Wood. As I said at the beginning, she is on the Board of Trustees at North Idaho College and also the Coeur d'Alene School Board, and she's a sergeant with the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. And by the way, there is also a police officer in Spokane writing a lot of books. So be with us again next week at the same time. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station. Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
This week, we're going to continue with our interview from the guest. Last week, we welcomed to the program Christy Wood, and really, I guess the best theme for these two programs is the love of dogs. And we've often heard that human's best friend is the dog. And our guest has two beautiful dogs, one called Oscar and one called Hannah, and she loves her dogs. But she's been invited because she's also written books, not only about her dogs, but also other animals that she had growing up. And these books are really children's books. And we read from one last week. One of her books is called The Adventures of Woodville. Oscar Meets the Duchess, and another book is coming out right after taping this program, and it will already be out by the time we do the program, called The Woodville Wedding. And also on the program today, we want to deal not only with her love for her dogs and the other animals that she grew up with in these children's books, but the other role of dogs, such as police dogs and eye-seeing dogs. And so it'll be all about that. Our guest is Christy Wood. She's a very active person. She's a sergeant with the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. She also is very active in the community. She has been elected to her second term on the Coeur d'Alene School Board, and she is serving her first term as a Board of Trustees member at North Idaho College. In addition to that, she writes these books. She has a husband and a grown son. And I can also add she's a gardener, and I've been able to taste some of her canned food, which she also labels. She is one active lady. Welcome, Christy, to our program.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And as always, I'm pleased to have regular panelist, Erna Reinhardt, who is Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and Erna will start the questioning today.
Welcome, Christy. We spent a lot of our time last week talking about the Adventures of Woodville and Oscar Meets the Duchess, which is a story about a whole parade of animals that went on an adventure, met an ogre, and lived happily ever after.
The ogre turned out to be a good ogre.
A very good ogre. A very good ogre. So what we want to talk about today, on today's show, is a little bit about your second book, The Woodville Wedding. So tell us a little bit about the characters in that story and the plot of that story.
Okay, well, it's a continuation of the Adventures at Woodville. At the end of the first book, Oscar proposes to Hannah and asks her to be his bride. So the second book starts off with another little bit of an adventure. Hannah is getting ready for the big day, and the animals are decorating the grounds at Woodville, and there's a new character that's introduced in the second book, and his name is Winston the Weasel. And Winston wakes up cold in his little cave, and his blanket is kind of tattered, and he thinks, I need a new blanket. So Winston decides to go to the main house to look for a pretty new blanket. Well, you can imagine Hannah's wedding dress was in the parlor, and Winston has no idea it's a dress. He just thinks it's a fabulous blanket. And so that's part of the adventure. It starts off with that, and Oscar ends up saving the day again. He always saves the day. And it ends very happily. They have a wonderful wedding, and it kind of sets it up for what will probably be the third book, probably be Christmas at Woodville next year, and possibly new additions to the Woodville family.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
By the birth of children.
Yes, little pugs.
Yes. For those who weren't with us last week, also, we should identify some of the other animals. You talked about Oscar and Hannah, the dogs, and the weasel, but in the journey, in the first book, and now at the wedding, I assume that's about to take place, and everybody helping with that, they're not just those three, there are other animals. We'll just identify some of those.
Yes, well, there's Sweet Pea the cow, and there's Goaty the goat, Jimmy the skunk, there's some chickens, Lucky the horse. Oh, gosh, there's just lots of little animals.
Near the end of the program last week, too, we'll shift a little bit here. You're indicating that you're getting ready to start a third book, but it's my understanding that it's not going to be the third in this sequence
Right.
for the Woodville and Christmas, although that probably is in the future.
Yes, I always wanted this to be a trilogy, but the other book that I've started is not a children's book in nature.
As writers, there are writers who do fiction and nonfiction. We interviewed some other day that the book is partially fiction and nonfiction. They took some real characters from their life and their parents' life, but then put it into fiction form. So, are you saying that you need a break from this sequel to do something else and then come back to it later?
Yeah, probably. I get asked a lot in my line of work, why are you not writing a mystery novel? Why are you not writing crime novels? And for me, that would be a little exhausting because I do that all day long. I write all the press releases for the police department, and I read police reports all day long, and I investigate all day long. And so I don't find a lot of interest in writing a crime novel.
Yeah.
So for me, the children's books have been just a wonderful escapism, and I really enjoy it. And then, of course, the work with the two school boards, I'm very passionate about education and reading, and it's a great opportunity to get into the classroom and reinforce reading. And by taking Oscar with me, kind of inspires the kids to get a little more interested, and so I'm hoping they will really be inspired to read a little more in this busy, hectic world of ours.
I have several other questions on that line. Now that you're going to take a break from the children's books of the third and the sequel, you are shifting and you're thinking to something else.
Yeah.
The next book of children's books are short, and their time to read is limited, or their attention span.
Yeah.
It sounds like the third book is going to be a much larger book.
Yeah, it's a little more serious. I'll tell you a little bit about it. I just have started working on the outline. It's just there was a period in my life when I was in the military, and it was a wonderful experience. It was also just an incredibly unique experience. And so it's just a short chapter of time where a lot of things happened at once. And I thought, it might be kind of a good thing. The title of the book is Now I'm Sleeping with Uncle Sam. And there's a reason for that. When you go to boot camp and you're marching, that's part of the cadence, part of the song is Mama, 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 me. Look what the Air Force did to me. Took away my loving man. Now I'm sleeping with Uncle Sam. And it's just kind of a way of you belong to the military. And that's fine. That's how you should feel when you're part of the military. And but there were a lot of things that happened to me in that short window of time that are unusual. Within 6 weeks, I had gone through a court-martial process, not against me, but I was the victim of a crime. There were just a tremendous lot of things. And I thought, well, maybe I'll put this to paper someday. And so young women that are thinking about going into the military, I absolutely want them to be inspired. And I want them to think it's a great thing to serve their country, because it is. But I also think it would be a good heads up to know the realities of what they're walking into. because I walked into it pretty cold, and I really just didn't know what to expect. And just a few tips will certainly help a few ladies out.
Tell me if I'm off course, but as I just talked about an author the other day, it sounds like that you're going to take a real life experience
Yes.
and write it to help young women in particular who
Yes.
may be going into the service. So you're basing it on true life,
Yes.
but are you going to also make it into somewhat also a fiction story, or
No,
it's going to be just totally real,
yeah.
non-fiction work?
Yeah, it'll be completely a real true story.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's some great moments, great things that happen. Some of our wonderful legislators that along the way helped me out of a tough spot in my life, and I'd like to highlight that and thank them.
So you're going to be honoring some people in
Yeah,
this?
yeah. And honoring the military above all.
Right.
So,
And I don't want to give away your story or
Yeah, that's
penetrate too far into this book, but also the bad experiences, those will be in the book too.
they will. I think I really believe that young females should know exactly what to expect in order just to protect themselves, because most of the girls that go into the military are 18 years, 19 years old, and that's quite an age of innocence. And so if you just have a few tips on what is to be expected of you and what maybe how people could try to take advantage of you, and maybe learn from some things I went through.
Yeah. But it's really interesting, the connection today in one of my classes. It broke a little bit early, and one student, she wanted to stay and talk to me, and she's a very extroverted student doing very well in the class, and she said, I just want to tell you a story. She says, in March, I signed up to go into the Marines. I have to go by next March, but she has some special talents, and they're trying to let her have a time period where there may be an opening where she can go in that area, although she'll have to do boot training. And I asked her, why did you choose the Marines? It was a really interesting story. She said, because I think it's the most special branch, because the others, they're paying a lot of money to get people to go into the Army and Navy, and since they don't pay us much to do that, it must be the easiest, must be not the easiest, must be the most popular one to be in, because you don't have to pay. Plus, I've dated Marines, she said. So maybe she's the kind of person your book would be for, because she's going into this with a little bit of unrealistic, probably, knowledge about what's coming.
It sounds like she has great patriotism.
Yes, she does.
Either way.
Yes. Erna Reinhardt.
I want you to share with us, Christy, please, a little bit about where your writing takes you in terms of, I think it's important for all of us in our busy lives to have something that fills our lives either through recreation, or a lot of people get into exercise or gardening or something that really serves as a way to escape.
Yeah.
So share with us how writing does that for you and where that takes you.
Yeah, well, especially the children's book. It's definitely great escapism. Like I said, I spend a lot of my day dealing with very dark subjects, which, I enjoy my job. I love my job. I've been in police work for almost 20 years now. But it's just the nature of the beast sometimes that it's not a very good subject. And we're dealing with child abuse, child molestation, rape, robbery. It can get a little dark. And so sitting down and writing these wonderful stories, they're wonderful to me, and hoping that kids can enjoy them. If there's any point in their life where they need some escapism, I'm hoping they can escape, just even for 5 minutes, because a lot of the children that I deal with definitely need that in their life. So.
We want to return to some discussion of the dogs, and all this other has been really things I didn't know that you hadn't told me. It's very interesting. I introduced the program indicating that not only are dogs wonderful pets,
Yeah.
and when you come home at night, they're always happy to see you. They're constant companions and friends. But we have other purposes that dogs do to help society. And so in your work, or in police work, that would be an example. Give us some idea of your knowledge of not only in your police department, but in others around that you work with different police departments, even in Spokane. What are the roles of dogs in police work?
Well, they're absolutely a true partner. They're a full-time officer with skills that are irreplaceable, much higher skills sometimes than humans have. And so they save lives every day just with their sense of smell, their protective nature. We use them here locally. We just got another dog, so I'm happy to tell you about him. His name is Max, and he's a beautiful black German Shepherd, long-haired German Shepherd. And he's actually going to be a drug dog, and he's assigned to our North Idaho Violent Crimes Regional Task Force. And he will assist that task force in all of the, if they're going to do a drug search or what have you.
They can just really, they can smell out or find drugs
Just amazing.
wherever they are, cars or homes. How long is the training for a dog like that to get them ready to?
Oh, it's several months.
It's several months.
Once they're with their handler, now they're trained somewhat before we get them. But when they're with their handler, they go away for several months together. It's quite a bonding period. And the dog really is taught to only respond to their handler. It's just so critical. Yeah. Our first dog, we still have her. Her name is Justice. She's with the police department. And we let an elementary school name her, and they picked the name Justice, and we thought that was so appropriate. And she's a lab boxer mix. Beautiful dog. First dog in the department, everybody wants to pet her. You know, everybody loves a dog. And so pretty soon everyone was sneaking Justice a snack here and there. And Justice got quite large. And her handler just, you know, went around telling everybody, you stop that. Because while she'd be pulled over for a traffic stop, her priority might be the Taco Bell bag instead of the drugs.
Yes.
And so we really had to stop and respect that she has a job to do. And she's a wonderful dog.
Now, the partner for the dog, the police officer, I assume has training before they even start doing this. They too have to be trained how to train the dog. Is that correct?
Well, they actually go through the course together.
Are they going to?
Yeah. And it's I can't quote exactly, but I think it's about a two-month time period where they spend together working exclusively. Now, there's ongoing training monthly. We go to training